Program contains some adult subject matter, and viewer discretion is advised. A practice most Americans see as foreign and barbaric suddenly wasn't very foreign. A Detroit doctor becomes the first in America charged with female genital mutilation. And the water shutoffs begin again for Detroit customers not paying their bills. Today is Sunday, April 23rd, 2017, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. It was another week of trying to keep up with the events from around the world. From violence in Paris to the nuclear deal in Iran, from urging support from China to keeping an eye on the voracious missile testing appetite of North Korea. We often talk about the way that international events reverberate in Detroit with our deep multiculturalism, and we are in the middle of an extraordinary collision of cultural ideals and norms. In 1996, the U.S. passed a law outlawing female genital mutilation. In the 21 years since, it's been a fairly dormant law, but this week it was used for the first time in criminal charges. Now, perhaps you might imagine its first use would be against a nearly invisible immigrant community elder working in the shadows, or perhaps a foreign-trained doctor bringing the ritual from abroad in a practice that is decidedly off the books. No, the charges are brought against an American-born physician trained at Johns Hopkins and employed by Henry Ford Health System in Detroit. Dr. Jumana Nargawala. Now, to be sure, this was not part of her job at Henry Ford. It allegedly happened at a clinic in Livonia, and the doctor who runs the clinic, Dr. Fakrud Nattar, was arrested on Friday. Prosecutors say two 7-year-old girls were brought here from Minnesota for a special girls' trip, as it was called. Nargawala has pleaded not guilty, but the charges would suggest that the girls are among the 200 million women and girls who've undergone the ritual procedure, mostly in Africa, the Middle East, or Asia. This morning, we're going to try to understand why a parent would put a girl through such an ordeal and what it means to weigh the law against tradition and faith. And a little later, water shutoffs again began this past week in the city of Detroit. Gary Brown will be here to talk about it. It's all this morning on Flashpoint. All right, let me note at the outset, this is not typical Sunday morning fare, and our conversation may become rather explicit, but it is impossible to understand this issue without a fair amount of candor. I should also point out that my first guest this morning is not here as an advocate of the practice of female circumcision, but rather as an immigrant to Detroit from Senegal. She is very familiar with its practice and its cultural significance and has agreed to do something that few do, and that's talk about it. I'm very happy to have with me. Let's talk about this morning with Sadie Sars. Sadie, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
At the very outset, it's difficult to even start talking about this given that we're talking about one specific charge that has been filed here over one version of this ritual or practice. When I talk about whether you want to describe it as female genital mutilation or female circumcision, you see a wide array of different things that happen all over the world.
Indeed, because like you said, is it mutilation, is it circumcision? And depending on who is practicing it, what is being done, who is taking out a clitoris, who is taking out outer labia, who is taking out inner labia, who is telling you, oh no, I'm just taking out the inner skin on the fold under the hood that is covering the clitoris, who is telling you, oh, I am actually sewing up the labia on the top of the orifice, vagina orifice, so that this woman is not, or this young girl is not gonna practice any sexual encounters until she is married. And all of that.
At which time she would have to have it all cut back open.
Cut back open.
Yes.
So, which creates a very intricate and complicated path to talk about it. Because if you are the one who actually obstruct an orifice, cut it or sew it, then yes, there is scar tissues.
Sure.
Then, of course, sexual encounters are very painful. Having a child, scar tissue don't dilate. So when you are time to have a baby, it is very painful, right? So those issues there make sense. The one who tells you, oh, we're just taking some outer skins that have nothing to do with any orifice.
Which I guess they might compare to male circumcision, just removing a piece of skin.
Exactly. Can you tell to that woman, oh, it's dangerous and there is going to be a problem when you're going to have children?
I think the part that the Western world really, where the collision begins to occur in understanding this, is that this is something that is done to a young child who, of course, has no say in this in the decision making here, and that it ends up affecting them for the rest of their lives, and that in that way that it bespeaks a certain kind of cruelty. I know that's not the way people in your home village see it.
Circumcisions for men is also done at a very young age,
yes.
and nobody have asked the choice of the boys.
In fact, you take issue with, I think the other thing that some people would say is that this is designed to destroy a woman's desire to be sexual for the rest of her life, that it somehow would necessarily, if you remove a woman's clitoris, that you've removed her ability to enjoy, to find sex pleasurable. You take issue with that? I
do take issue with that because not all women enjoy sexual encounters through their clitoris. So the one who enjoy their pleasure for their vagina, can you make that argument? Not really. And also, who decide what pleasure look like? So
that's a fair question.
We are actually here talking about a social-cultural practice. But this is a non-European social-cultural practice that is being engaged with a totally European-centric view. And it have always been the case. So nobody really took the time to organically leave these societies to deal with the issue and grow out of it. So I will bring in the chastity belt, which was a European practice.
Yes.
That was done for so many years, that was accepted, that people in Africa or in India or Asia might look upon like, hey, what's that? But they did not take it upon them to go to Europe and tell them, you know what? You guys need to stop this because it's barbaric, and you guys need to stop it on our terms.
The other thing that you mentioned to my producer, Olive, that you said that in your village in Senegal, where you grew up, if you are a woman who has not undergone this ritual, this procedure, and it's interesting to note, by the way, that the words for these procedures in those other languages roughly translate often to either a cleansing, a purifying, so it's thought to be a purification ritual. But if you haven't undergone that in your village, you're really not considered to be a part of the women. You're not really a woman, and you're not considered to be a part of the group of women in the village. Is that correct?
Well, your decision-making, your stature in the decision-making when you grow up is not the same as the one that have had it. So knowing that the practice is part of a series of rite of passages, that actually is the path that was laid out for the education of women to learn how to be a woman, to grow into being a woman and things like that, but also to grow into being a contributing member at certain level. So certain women would never achieve a certain level of being able to be a full contributed member if the other people from their generation is looking at them as, okay, really, can you really make this decision? Can you really have this conversation?
If I buy this notion that that what we're watching then is a sort of cultural divide where one culture is judging another. We have laws in this country, though. We have a law against female genital mutilation, which these two doctors are now charged with violating. So if you want to come, if someone wants to come be a part of this culture, of this society, of this country, doesn't it mean adhering to the laws?
Well, adhering to the law is something that everybody should do, and I agree into that, because that was my first initial reaction. I asked myself, why would you take the risk into the United States, right? So, but I think they are the ones that are going to be able to answer to those questions, because that was my first initial reaction. But knowing also that the laws exist everywhere else. The issue I have with the law...
In fact, it's against the law in Senegal.
It is against the law in Senegal. But the issue I have of it being against the law in Senegal is that it was not something that Senegalese people by themselves, with the few ethnic groups who are practicing it, that decided to take it upon themselves. It didn't come out from those villages where people grew up and say, hey, you know what, we want to get into the conversation this way. But it was something totally imposed into the Senegalese government based on advocacy on Western groups, and you know, everything takes up, and it's a campaign, and we have to you know, abide by international laws. And when we abide by international laws and treaties, now we come back in the country and say, hey, we are changing this. So it's always, you always see the hand, the outside hand that is still manipulating how societies are supposed to organically grow. And
and move forward.
And move
Sadie,
forward.
it is such a sensitive conversation, but I so appreciate you willing to be a part of it. Thank you very much for being here this morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sadie Saar, my guest. When we come back, we'll talk about the ethical implications here, medical and otherwise. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. The following contains some adult subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, let's talk more about the charges against 2 Detroit area doctors accused of carrying out female genital mutilation. Now, a newsroom is a newsroom, but the interest in this topic among reporters and producers here has been particularly keen. As I told them, we'd be examining the issue on Flashpoint. So let's continue, dig a little further. Sadie is still with me, who we just spoke with. Now joining us, Dr. Michael Stellini from the Department of Internal Medicine at Wayne State, but also the director of the medical ethics curriculum, and author and activist Moina Udine. Among her books that she's written, one called Her Sudan Man, His Circumcised Wife, which drew a lot of attention to this practice that has been for so long cloaked in secrecy. Thank you both very much for being here. Doctor, let me start with you and the ethical implications for these 2 physicians. If these charges are true, they've broken a law, but the Hippocratic Oath says do no harm. Have they broken that?
So I think you brought it up, took the words out of my mouth, do no harm. And so I think the idea of, medical practice and ethical construct, so was there consent, informed consent? Did we do something for the benefit of the patient? And did we do something to harm the patient? Obviously, not harming the patient is a major tenet of medical practice. Everything we do should be for the benefit of the patient. And when you're doing procedures, we should have the consent of the patient. So my view, this was harming the patient, and in my view and understanding, I don't see a benefit to the patient. I know that there's some cultural issues that can be discussed about this, but
we see collisions, though, often between medicine and, if not faith, tradition, custom. We occasionally see a case where a Christian scientist doesn't want their child treated with modern medicine, believing that their faith is the best healer. These are difficult matters for you as a physician.
Right, and when it comes to children, our society and our practice looks at this in a different way than perhaps an adult. So there's a lot of precedent for overruling parental rights and control. So for a minor, they're not able to give informed consent for most things. It varies on the age, but certainly a 7 or 8 or 10-year-old, 12-year-old couldn't do that. And so we give a lot of leeway to parents to guide care. We allow parents to forego vaccination, for example.
Yes.
It's controversial. Yes. We allow that even though there's a great belief that it's a personal harm, potential harm to the child and to the public health. There are many cases, though, however, where we've overruled parental guidance and, for example, treating a treatable leukemia. Giving a blood transfusion that maybe parents didn't want. So there are certain very life-saving important things that we overrule parents, and so where do we draw that line? Certainly something as serious like that we do.
Moina, you spent, I believe, 3 years before you wrote the book researching this issue. I know you've got very strong opinions about what's happened.
Exactly. I mean, there are federal laws against this, to either export the girls out of the country or have someone to come into the country to do this in all 50 states. There is no known benefit for it for the female. 150 million women in 2005, when my book first came out, had survived this. The women that die from it due to birth complications, first wedding night complications.
Which may be years and years and years after this procedure was done,
exactly,
of course.
Or some may bleed to death because they're hemophiliacs, they don't know about it. The child can't come through the birth canal, the woman and the child may die. So those women are not counted because they're not considered human, they're chattel.
As Sadie pointed out, though, there is this enormous spectrum of procedures, rituals. It's really difficult to define this as one thing. Does that complicate it all to you, or is any of it?
The one thing that doesn't complicate it is the removal of the clitoris, which is only known purpose is to give the woman pleasure. That is eliminated when the clitoris is amputated.
Sadie, your reflections on what you've heard so far.
Well, I'll start from the clitoris issues. So, like she said, the only known role of the clitoris is to give pleasure. Now, are we saying that we all agree that the only way that women can have pleasure, all women are, is only clitoris? because when I was in high school in Senegal, we were young and we did a project on it, and we interviewed women who had the procedures, and we had a different way of answers. Some woman was like, oh, definitely, I don't have no pleasure, this was not good, and I can't. And some other woman was like, who told you that I don't have no pleasure? So personally, I cannot decide for another woman.
And again, I'm not trying to put you,
no,
yes,
exactly.
as I said at the outset, Cindy's not here as an advocate for this,
for
just
me,
to
that's the
help explain it.
conversation that need to happen. But my point is that conversation needed to happen on a very organic way. The point that I am making is that there have always been interruptions. That was not organic. And I believe that if societies are let to grow out of their own practices, they will find a perfect way or a balanced way or a way to come to terms with it. But when we talk about it, I feel like that there is always a way where it's a judgment against another culture, another practice, and that what they have to say is not really being considered, because what is being considered is another way of life.
Let me let you both weigh in on that idea then.
Well,
that this is sort of a cultural judgment that we have as Westerners.
Well, I feel a lot of people, the reason why Sudan is in the title of my book, 98% of the women and girls are circumcised. Then you have Somalia, Ethiopia, and then so forth. 96 for them. Mm-hmm. And I feel that it's not so much judgmental when you have families and fathers who know about the harm this caused, who have left their countries, have had intimate contact with intact women, mm-hmm. and they know that this is harmful for their daughters. They pay to get them out of the country, away from it, for asylum here or someplace else.
Dr. Let me let you weigh in on it.
You know, again, I would go back to we're doing something to somebody without their consent that may be painful at the time, may lead to complications, medical complications, the lack of sexual pleasure.
You could be talking about male circumcision here in this case.
Right. So
I've only got about 30 seconds left.
Okay, expected to bring that up, but that's another argument actually, and I think that's a valid argument. I think the harms are way different. Although I would say we could still argue male circumcision. The harms are way different, and the male circumcised at days old versus someone who's 7 or 8 can experience pain and psychological torment from it.
I'm going to leave it there. Very sensitive, delicate conversation, but I think you all did it so admirably. Thank you very much for being here. We'll continue. Gary Brown here to talk about water shutoffs in Detroit right after this on Flashpoint on Local 4. All right, last Wednesday, City of Detroit dug in its heels again on those not paying their water bills, and water shutoffs began, a decision that has been controversial in the past, but as we'll hear, also seems to be rather effective in getting the bills paid. The director of the Detroit Water and Sewerage System, Gary Brown, back with us on Flashpoint. Gary, good to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Devin.
To the point, it is controversial when you start these again, and some people believe that there's a certain inhumanity to it. In fact, you don't shut them off in the wintertime because that would be a desperate situation.
Yes.
But the fact that you do start, that you recognize that, some people would say this is still inhumane. You're just waiting for warmer weather to do it. This is not the approach.
Well, we certainly want to be compassionate, and we're training our staff to be compassionate. But the compassionate thing to do is to offer our customers some assistance in order to make water affordable for those customers that are below the poverty line. And that's what we're doing. I think we have one of the most robust, comprehensive assistance programs in America in any utility, whether you talk about gas, lights, or water.
You've actually got around half as many people at risk of a shutoff as you did the last time around. So clearly the outreach has started to work. Yeah. But I'm wondering, can you discern how many people really have a problem paying their bills and how many people just aren't paying?
Yeah, that's the hard part. The people, our customers that can pay, they must pay, because when they don't, we pass the cost on to the customers that are paying, many of which are struggling. So that's not fair. And then those are the ones that need help, and we need them to come in and ask for help. We need to be compassionate about it, and I think that we have created an assistance program that's second to none in America.
In fact, you're invited to speak about this assistance program all over the country, right?
Yeah, around the country, and we don't go into someone's home and hand them a list of contractors and say, fix the leaks you have in your home. We go in, we do an audit, our plumbers do an audit, we fix the customer's plumbing issues up to $1,000 so that they have an average bill. then we give them $25 assistance on their monthly average bill, and we freeze their arrears, and if they make their monthly payment, we completely pay off their arrears.
Well, one of my other real interest points in this, and you and I have talked about this before, are the inefficiencies in the system, not only in people's homes, but in the water system itself, where we've got all these old pipes that are leaking gallons and gallons and gallons an hour. How are we doing at upgrading that problem?
Well, one of the things that we're doing is we've asked the Buildings and Safety Department to start a certification program for landlords that are renting properties that have leaky pipes. When you rent a piece of property to a person below the poverty line that has leaky pipes, you're exacerbating the amount of cost that they have to pay and making it unaffordable. And so not only are we going in and fixing those pipes and removing lead if we find it in fixtures in homes, but we're asking the Buildings and Safety Department to, when you go in and do your buildings inspections for landlord-tenant situations, make sure that plumbing's fixed.
I mentioned at the outset that as cruel as some people have felt that this program has been, doing these shutoffs, it's been effective. 90% of the people, once they're shut off, all of a sudden either start paying their bills or they create a plan to start paying their bills. So it really does get people's attention.
Not only do we put a notification after 30 days on the bill that you're past due, and then we'll put it on a second time, so now you're 60 days past due. Then we go out and we hang a door knocker that says, here's the assistance that's available. We need you to come in and apply for the assistance, because if our customers get dig themselves too big of a hole, they'll never get out of it.
In fact, that's why you've changed how soon it is the shutoffs begin, because as you were explaining to me earlier, if somebody's $10,000 in arrears, you can't fix that problem. But if somebody's $200 in arrears...
We've got lots of tools in the toolbox to be able to give assistance.
I wanted to ask you about Flint, and as they try and decide where their water's going to come from, I think you're trying to make the case that this water assistance program is what Flint needs to be a part of, and they can only do that if they hook into Detroit Water.
Yeah, they have to have a contract with the Great Lakes Water Authority in order to be eligible for assistance dollars. And over the next 10 years, there's $40 million available. The other thing is that for Detroit and all the other customers in the Great Lakes Water Authority, there's no build out to supply water to Flint. The infrastructure is already there. The more customers we put on the system, the cheaper it is for everyone. So it's great news for all the communities that Flint is coming back on the Great Lakes Water Authority.
Can you make but their original, of course, switch was they felt Detroit water was too expensive.
Yeah, I think they know differently now. I mean, it certainly couldn't have been as expensive as not having a corrosion control program in place and what you have now.
Gary Brown, always good to have you on the program.
Thanks
very much for being here this morning. You bet.
Appreciate
Thank you for being here as well. Meet the Press coming up next. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time right back here for Flashpoint.